Welcome into another edition of Greatest Pod in the South. This is episode number 126. I'm Neil McCready, Gabe DeArmond with me here today. JG Tate. He's not exactly taking the day off, but he's not going to be with us. He's about to have a really busy week.
I feel like there's two things here. First of all, this might be the greatest day in internet history, right? Like the Auburn site has never been so happy. Also, I feel like maybe this podcast should on the priority list.
That's true. Well, I
don't mean to speak ill of someone who's not here, but
I'm going to give him a pass today.
Yeah,
I think this would go down as an excused absence for Jay.
Oh.
We'll get him.
I would actually be upset if he was here.
Yeah, well, so would all of his subscribers.
Yes.
So Auburn has fired Gus Malzahn. We will talk about that. We'll talk about a lot of different things going on in the world of college sports and other things. Get to that in just a minute. This show made possible by the people at Automation and Control Systems, LLC. ACS owned by Clay McNutt in Baldwin, Mississippi. Jay likes to call him the Beast of Baldwin. Established in 2013, ACS is a complete electrical control system solution provider and a Rockwell Automation recognized systems integrator. ACS has a full-time dedicated emergency service and troubleshooting staff and a UL 508A panel shop. ACS can custom tailor software packages, custom design electrical control panel solutions, and much more. ACS is a full-service AutoCAD services provider and a full-service fiber optic cabling solution provider. If you're in need of custom HMI and SCADA solutions or large horsepower VFD specialists, I should say, ACS has you covered. They can service and install Rockwell Automation, Allen Bradley, Siemens, ABB Square D, and many other manufacturers. For more information or to get in touch with ACS, go to acsllcms.com or call 662-601-4381. Happy birthday to one Corey Clark. I'm in the Clark Ford Studios today. Clark Ford is in Amory, Mississippi, 662-257-1900. You can call the birthday boy tomorrow or any day this week and say, hey, Corey, I'm looking for an F-150. I'm looking for an Explorer. I'm looking for a Focus, whatever the case may be, whatever Ford product you're interested in. He'll send you a quote within 15 minutes in business hours, right to the bottom line. No hassle, no haggle. You get your quote, and the rest is up to you. 662-257-1900. Gabriel, you look dapper. I know you're getting ready for television. I, on the other hand, look like unshaven, uncleaned trash. If you could smell me, I smell worse than I look right now. I put a brisket on this morning at 8 o'clock. I just put a turkey breast on. I smell like a lot of smoke. I'm using pecan. I've got a little apple wood going, and I smell like it. So, but hopefully it'll all turn out well.
That sounds delightful. I might show up. It's a 7-hour drive. I'd be there by 10.
For someone who's as terrified of eating as I am because of calories, I really enjoy cooking. Like I did steaks last night. I did sous vide them and I did some sausages from LB's, and it was a lot of fun. I lit the outdoor fireplace and I watched LSU Florida, which was one of the crazy games. I know we should start with Malzahn, Gabe, but I got to start with the shoe toss because it's the most. Earlier in the day, like Dan Wolkin, who hates his job, tweeted out, I'll just be glad when this is over, and it's awful. Right. This is such a nondescript day of college football. And I was like, well, I mean.
It became very descript.
It became oh so descript because you couldn't see the field at Army-Navy. And then Florida-LSU was this fog soup kind of thing. Ross Dellinger tweeted out that everything in the press box was wet. And so it was this weird night. And Florida gets the stop on third down, and the kid takes the shoe and tosses it. And then the referee says, upon making the call, says, took the shoe and threw it 20 yards.
Yeah. Did you see Mullen's press conference afterwards?
Yeah.
So he basically gives the most Dan Mullen answer ever, which is like, yeah, I don't know. I didn't see it. I don't really know what happened. They throw a penalty flag. Maybe you guys saw it. And some reporter just goes, yeah, he threw a guy's shoe.
It was Edgar Thompson. He goes, yeah, Danny threw the shoe.
Amazing. It was literally the only drive of college football I saw all day that did not involve Missouri, because Missouri had an 11 a.m. game and then a 7 o'clock basketball game. So like a 14-hour day. It was literally, I watched that drive while I was sitting waiting for Conzo Martin's press conference after the basketball game. And I mean, I picked well. College football is amazing. It's such a train wreck. Like, you just see so many things that you don't see anywhere else.
It truly is. That'd be one of those deals where when Conzo got in there, you went, "Hey, Conzo, can you hang on one second?"
I mean, it was like this conference has given us 2 years in a row a rivalry game being lost because of the dog peeing celebration, and then a team losing a playoff spot because a guy threw a shoe. Like, I just want to know. I want a real answer. Marco Wilson, like, at what point, why? Are you just thinking this is the right way to celebrate?
It just shows you that while sometimes you, the fan, are dialed into a game, you, the media, are dialed into games, you, the coach, are obviously dialed into the minutia of every moment of every game, sometimes the kids aren't. And, like last year, people are like, what was Elijah Moore thinking? And you probably don't know Elijah Moore. You've never interviewed Elijah Moore. There'd be no reason for you to have conversations with Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore is the last person on that team that you would have thought, okay, if the football gods came down before the game and said, someone is going to score a touchdown and do the dog pee thing.
Right.
You get 3 guesses. Elijah Moore would not have been one of those 3 guesses. I mean, he just wouldn't have been. He would have been like, and if the football gods had told you it's going to be Elijah Moore, you're like, no, come on, it's not going to be him. Because he's always been this guy that when he scores a touchdown, he does what he does this year, which is hand the ball to the official and go on. Right. But he clearly had made up his mind before that game that if I score a touchdown, you got to understand, one of the things is that gets overlooked in the telling of that story, and I can't believe this is where we're starting, but you never know in podcast world, is Elijah Moore worships the ground that DK Metcalf and A.J. Brown walk on.
A lot of people do now.
But he was their teammate. When they were juniors getting ready to leave, he was a true freshman, and they loved him, and they took him under their wing, and he still worships them. And so DK did that in 2017, and it just didn't matter because Ole Miss was winning the game pretty handedly at the time. And so while DK got a penalty and everybody, laughed about it, it was funny, Ole Miss was up 20. So Elijah had very clearly decided that he was going to do this. And when he didn't score until 38 seconds or whatever it was left in the fourth quarter, he was going to, by God, do it. And so he did it. And that's exactly what happened.
Well, so then we can assume, I guess, that Marco Wilson was paying tribute to, I don't know, like Joe Hayden, who at some point threw a shoe?
Or just some shot putter somewhere. I don't know. It was just crazy. But it absolutely cost Florida a shot at the national quarterfinal because they're going to play it now. And even if they win, and they're not.
Which they won't.
Right. If there is anything that saves Marco Wilson here, it's that Florida's losing by 20-plus points to Alabama.
Yeah, but you're still going to have that. But you're going to have Florida fans saying, well, it's because they know they're done. Like, what happened? They would have come in here 9-1 with the shot. And I saw actually kind of it goes back to Mullen. I saw a couple people write this yesterday that basically, I guess Mullen was telling the TV people on Friday, well, like, even if we lose to LSU, if we beat Bama, we should get in the playoff. We're going to win if we win the SEC, we're in. And that clearly kind of pervaded his team played like a team that went out there and said, I mean, first of all, LSU's trash and we're going to win. But even if we don't, it really doesn't matter.
And you got to give some credit to LSU here. They had a horrible week.
Horrible year.
They've had a horrible year, a horrible week. There's a lot of talk about Orgeron and with cause and all those kinds of things. And guys defected and got opted out, quit, whatever term you want to use. And
I like defected. I'm going to start using that.
Defected. You can use it.
Seceded.
Just get seceded from the union. But, the guys dropped out and they played hard with no real reason to play hard. And meanwhile, Florida, with every reason in the world to play hard, played checked out. And when you do that, you run the risk. And that's one of the reasons the ACC was like, see, this is why we gave Notre Dame and Clemson a week off. Yeah, it's exactly why. But anyway, it's a crazy day. How surprised are you about Gus Malzahn being fired?
I'd like to say surprise, but haven't we done this? I mean, Gus Malzahn has been on the hot seat since I've covered the SEC. It seems like every year we do this. And what are they, 6-4? Is that right?
Yeah.
And probably realistically, we all know that was 5-5 because they should have lost the Arkansas game.
And
even
though easily lost to Ole Miss. I mean, they could easily be 4-6, and this would have been an easy decision.
And honestly, they didn't beat Mississippi State by much. So Auburn is in that place. I actually wrote this yesterday after Missouri got absolutely railroaded by Georgia. I said, what you've got in this league are 4 teams that are clearly separate from everyone else, right? Yeah. Like if I'm doing power rankings in the SEC, in some order, Missouri, LSU, Ole Miss, and Auburn are 5, 6, 7, 8. You put them in whichever order you want.
Yeah.
I understand it's a weird time to say this the day after LSU beat Florida, but the gap between 5 and 4, it basically goes Alabama, huge gap, A&M, Florida, Georgia, in some order, huge gap, and then those 4 teams we talked about. But the gap between 4 and 5, I mean, there are 4 legitimately good teams in this league. Like, I don't know if playoff worthy, but like New Year's Day bowl worthy teams. And then there are a bunch of teams that in a normal year you're going, yeah, they went 8-4, 9-3, but like they didn't beat anybody. They're going to go play in the Gator Bowl, and it was a fine year.
So Missouri
and at Auburn, that's not good enough.
Missouri still has a game left.
Yeah, they play Mississippi State next weekend in Starkville.
So Missouri's 4-5, going for 5-5.
They're 5-4, going for 6-4.
Oh wow! So that's a pretty strong year.
Yeah.
Ole Miss is 4-4, going for 5-4. It feels like those are 2 programs that are on the rise a little bit. That's what I wrote about a little bit this morning, was just kind of looking at the landscape of the league. I agree with you completely. First of all, Alabama's up here, and nobody's anywhere close.
They're 30 points better than anybody else in this league.
When they want to be, they are.
And by the way, they've done this without maybe their best player. Like, we forget Jalen Waddle out for the year, 5, 6 weeks ago?
Yeah. I mean, well, they're going to win the Heisman. The question's who?
Yeah. I mean, at this point, yeah. I said last week I would probably vote for Devontae Smith because I think he's the best player.
I think Devontae Smith is the best player.
Well, maybe Trevor Lawrence is actually the best player, right? But
Trevor,
he's probably not going to win it.
So he's not going to win it. Trask is not going to win it because he just lost LSU, and he's going to lose to Alabama. So Alabama sort of gets to decide who's going to win it. And sometimes I feel bad because Najee Harris, he's sitting there going, what about me?
Right.
I think it's Devontae. He returned the punt for a touchdown yesterday, and that felt like something of an exclamation point. And for whatever reason, and I don't know why, people don't want to give Mac Jones the credit for being as good as he is. I think it's because he was Tua's backup for so long. It's like, well, he must suck because he was a backup. It's like, yeah, but he was Tua's backup.
Right.
I mean, he would have gone to Missouri or Ole Miss or Kentucky or whatever, and day one walked in him, and I'm the guy. Give me the ball.
Missouri actually recruited him. Relative, like they were kind of in the discussion. I don't think he ever actually visited, but there was a time there where Tua was there, and it was kind of like, well, Mac Jones, you're not going to play for a while, and he thought about looking around a little bit, and Missouri was one of the schools that he might have visited. I think Missouri and Kentucky and somewhere else, but that did not materialize. I would say he's done all right for himself.
So were you surprised about Malzahn?
No, I wasn't, but so we've done this before, and I actually think this is maybe a more a discussion that maybe is worth having with when Jay's not on here. Nothing against Jay, but he's so close to it, right? That sometimes when you're a little bit removed from it, you have a little more broad view of it. I mean, there are 66 Power 5 football teams, 65 outside Auburn. How many of those is it an upgrade if you hire Gus Malzahn today? I mean, I think minimum 40, 45.
Oh, you think it's that high?
Yeah, I really do. I
think that's a little high. But, like, for example, Illinois fired Lovie Smith this morning.
Right. If they can hire Gus Malzahn tomorrow,
they would be thrilled.
Yeah. I mean, 2 years ago when this was going on.
Here's the point, though. You and I both cover programs that if today the coach left and Gus Malzahn was the guy that got hired, they'd be like, all right, sucks. And that tells you just –
You think?
Yeah, absolutely. If Eli Drinkwitz got up this morning and said, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to go be a farmer someplace. This is not what I want to do with my life. anymore. I'm done. And later this week, Missouri hired Gus Malzahn. I think your people would be very disappointed.
If they might be. I think
Kiffin got up this morning and said, you know what, I want to be a fisherman. And
yeah.
I'm going to get on my boat. I don't want to be in the limelight anymore. And a week later, Ole Miss hired Gus Malzahn. Ole Miss people, I'd be out of business.
But how much of that is football and how much of it is personality? Like, Gus is boring. He is a robot, but I think he's a good football coach. I mean, I understand why he's being fired. I'm not saying it's unreasonable.
He's a good football coach at a program that believes, and this is the key word. And
They've got a Saban problem.
They believe they should be great.
Right.
Even though the metrics don't support that, even though the evidence doesn't support that, they believe they should be great.
I would argue Auburn is one of the best tier 2 teams in the country and has maximized what that means. Because in college, we talked about 4 teams in this league, right, separating itself. Well, you know what the problem is? 3 of those teams get like 96% of the 5 stars every year, along with Clemson, Ohio State, and a couple others. So you've got 8 teams in the country that basically, it's like if you went in the NFL and said, okay, the Chiefs and Steelers and Packers and Seahawks, you guys get 5 first-round picks every year, and everybody else has to wait till the 5th round to pick. That's what trying to come up in college football is. And so if you're anybody but those 10 programs, the best you can hope for is just consistently, 8-9 wins, and then when you get that chance, maximize it. And Auburn has done that. They've won national titles and they've played for others. And I would argue Auburn is one of the best non-elite, absolutely top-level programs in the country.
To your point, I was looking at it this morning because I was doing my 10 weekend thoughts, and one of them was about recruiting because Wednesday's National Signing Day, of course. Mm. And so I was looking at where's Ole Miss right now? They're 19th. By the way, Missouri's like 20th.
Missouri is 19th or 20th, which is the highest they've ever been in the Rivals era.
It speaks volume.
It would be their best signing class ever.
It's kind of feeding into 2 points that I'm making. One is that Auburn, to get where Auburn wants to get, has to beat Georgia and Alabama.
Every year.
Alabama's number 1 in the recruiting rankings right now.
And by the way, LSU.
Yeah, and Georgia's number 4. And LSU's number 5. With all the chaos, LSU's number 5 in the rankings. And you look up and there's Ole Miss at 19 with a bunch of high-profile kids waiting to sign. I think Ole Miss is going to get to the top 15. You look around in the Texas A&M's like 11th, I think, in the recruiting ranking, and they're, 5th in the country right now. That's the thing. So when the Auburn job's open and everybody goes, oh, boy, there's going to be this long list of people that want the job, and maybe there will be. But if you start talking about Mario Cristobal, I would ask, if I'm Mario Cristobal, and I'm being honest with myself, what's a better job today? Oregon with the ability to wait, or go to Auburn right now, and I got to deal with Kirby, and I got to deal with Nick Saban, and I've been at Alabama, and I know exactly what I'm dealing with Alabama, and I don't know that you can compete with that right now.
So when are coaches going to figure out what non-coaches know, which is there's nothing wrong with being at a place that maybe isn't, they're better. Do you think Shaka Smart regrets jumping from VCU to Texas? Because everybody says Texas is this huge thing, right? It hasn't worked there. He had a lifetime deal at VCU. He was never getting fired.
But coaches are as bad as recruits about this. They are. Well, if I it's the guy thinking about taking the Vanderbilt job who goes, yeah, I know that everybody in front of me has failed, but I won't fail.
Right.
Look at me. I won it. In this case, Coastal Carolina.
Right.
I won at Army. I'll win at Vanderbilt. No, nobody else ever has, except James Franklin briefly. And that's it, and so it's those guys. It's the guy that looks at Auburn and goes, well, if I were there, Alabama wouldn't be what Alabama is. If I were there, Georgia wouldn't be what Georgia is. And you want one of those guys. But, they're talking about Mario Cristobal. They're talking about Billy Napier at Louisiana Lafayette. They're talking about Hugh Freeze, the former Ole Miss coach, who's done a great job at Liberty. But none of those guys, I don't look at any of those names and go, oh, well, that takes Auburn and puts them at a completely different level because those guys are head and shoulders better than Gus Malzahn.
Right, because guess who their rival still is? The best coach in the history of college football. And he's got to beat him every year. And their cross division game every year is Alabama Junior. Like, I think people actually underrate Georgia's recruiting. Georgia is Alabama right now. The only thing they haven't done is win that one game. Like that's it. They are Alabama as a program, except for that one game. And I know that's a big difference, but I think this all kind of started. The program that started this was Nebraska about 20 years ago now. So Tom Osborne retired and Frank Solich replaced him. And Frank Solich was good. Like, he was averaging 9-10 wins a year. But for Nebraska, that wasn't good enough. And they fired Frank Solich, and he went off to Ohio and made a lot of money and did real well. And what they figured out was, we went through this coaching search. We didn't know what we were going to do when we fired Frank Solich. We just thought, we're Nebraska and it's going to work.
Yeah.
And they got to Bill Callahan, who was like 6th on their list. And he torpedoed that thing. And Nebraska got passed by Missouri. And they've never been Nebraska again since then. And they're now an afterthought in a different league. And the path back to what Tom Osborne had doesn't exist.
Nope.
You know?
They went out and got Scott Frost, who won big at UCF, and they thought, he's a Nebraska guy and he'll turn it around. And he hasn't.
Yep.
Because it might not be possible. It's the same with Tennessee. Tennessee's facing this big decision coming up next week. They play Texas A&M and they're going to lose. And that game's going to end, and everybody's going to be like, okay, this doesn't work, and Fulmer needs to fire Pruitt.
But they have to keep him, because if they don't keep him, they have to fire Fulmer, and they're not firing Fulmer.
Yeah, but the people look at it and go, well, Tennessee should be, because it once was. That it's just not how it works.
Right.
It's not how it works. I mean, it's why, frankly, it's why I believe we severely underestimate, even with all the credit that he gets, we severely underestimate the job Nick Saban does.
And he's made every other coach's job in the SEC harder, especially in the SEC West. Like, that's who you compare yourself to, and you just can't do that. It's the best program in – do we agree Alabama's the best program in college football history? Maybe Notre Dame, but probably Alabama.
That's Alabama.
Okay. So it's the best program in the history of college football at its absolute height.
With the best coach who's ever coached.
Yeah, I understand how hard that is when that's your rival to accept, hey, we're not going to be them. But, like, you're not going to be them.
Yeah. So, all right, let's jump around a little bit. There's another big story that happened yesterday that's a different story completely than the hilarity that is college football. And so I was getting ready to do a Peloton ride early yesterday, and I got on. I was flipping around. I was like, what am I going to watch? And I flipped to Florida State basketball, because I'm trying to make myself watch some SEC college basketball teams. Mm-hmm. And so, I'm like, well, I know Mike White, used to be an assistant with Andy Kennedy at Ole Miss. I like Mike, so I'll watch the Gators. And they come out of a TV timeout, and it's chaos. And you finally get to the story that Keyontae Johnson, the preseason SEC Player of the Year, easily one of the best 3 or 4 players in the league, had collapsed. I've seen the video. If you haven't seen the video, don't go look for the video. The video is horrible. The sound is worse than even what you see, and what you see is bad enough. It's horrifying. And he collapsed, and they resumed the game, played the rest of the game somehow, some way. I don't know.
I'm sure that was the right call, but
yeah, I honestly don't know how the Florida kids did it. It speaks to how many basketball games they've played in their lives, that it's just they became basketball robots and played.
Or the Florida State kids, to be honest.
They were absolutely every bit as shook up as the Florida kids. And so, Leonard Hamilton, to his credit, went over to Mike White and said, hey, we'll do whatever you guys want to do. If you don't want to play, we understand. If you want to play, we'll play, whatever. And Mike supposedly asked his kids, what do you want to do? And they said, we want to play. And so they played. Anyway, that's immaterial. He is, as of this recording, which is 2:52 Central Standard Time on Sunday, December the 13th, in critical but stable condition. I've heard different things. The consensus seems to be that he's getting out of the woods in terms of surviving. There obviously is a serious issue World-class athletes don't just drop like that. He tested positive in June, Gabe, for COVID-19.
Okay.
So he was, in fact, was one of the first athletes in the league to test positive, documented test positive when they came back to get ready for the season. So he's been through the protocols that include the heart exam
Screening. Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't see that there. And I wrote this in 10 thoughts. I'm curious to get your thoughts because I think you're a better journalist than I am. I'm a little concerned with some of the coverage that's come out with people already making the tie between his having COVID and this incident. And it's certainly possible that the two are related, but it's also possible that they're not related.
Right.
It's possible this is sickle cell. It's possible this is a previously undiagnosed heart defect. As I wrote this morning, Hank Gathers dropped dead at Loyola Marymount.
That's what I kept thinking of.
Yeah,
like we're of the age that we remember that.
Yeah,
I was watching that game. Yeah.
I remember the game. Reggie Lewis, at that time Celtic star, was at a basketball practice, I think at Boston College or Boston University, one or the other, and he dropped dead. That was obviously pre-COVID. This isn't about whether you take COVID seriously or not. It's not at all. This is about, from a media standpoint, making this leap to tie the two together before you can tie or not tie. You can't dismiss it either, but you can't do this. Hey, and I've already heard some people say, hey, we shouldn't play anymore until we know what this is. And I think that's a dangerous overreaction.
Yeah.
Because look, if you shut it down right now for 2 weeks, that's into the new year. You got to send everybody home. When you come back, you've got to retest, reacclimate, redo all these things. I don't think that's the path. And I see some schools starting to hint at it. Duke shut it down. Somebody else has kind of shut some stuff down. They're just going to play conference only, all that stuff. It's December the 13th. It's a tragedy, certainly, but I'm hoping our field doesn't go too far with these. With I know.
Are you familiar with our field?
Yeah, and everybody wants to be right so bad. Yeah, and there were some people that were like, you can't do this, you can't do this. Well, we a lot of people are doing it, and I don't mean this to minimize what happened to Keyontae at all. Not any. Right. But when it's just one person, it is an anecdotal, not statistical.
Yeah. And so, look, obviously, if this is somehow tied to, if in the end it is proven that, hey, was a result of him getting COVID and everything, like this is a game changer for the future of a lot of sports for the immediate,
no question,
for the immediate short-term time being. But, I covered the death of a college athlete at a workout. It was 14 years ago, and it was a scarring thing. I was at the workout, and saw the kid collapse, and then a few hours later found out he died. And I just remember thinking for the next few days, like all I could think was, I've got to be so careful and read every single thing I write for the next week, because you know where I don't want to end up? In a damn courtroom.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, I had radio people calling me and saying, hey, I know you were at this workout. Can you come on here and talk about what happened with Aaron? Nope, sure can't. Don't even want anybody to know I was there. Don't want anything to do with that, because your only job at this time is, here are the facts. Here is what happened. That's it. Right. I'm not a doctor. I'm none of us are in any way qualified to tie this to anything bigger than a kid collapsed. He's in critical but stable condition. And when that changes, we will tell you.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the only job.
You ask questions, obviously.
Yeah. Of people who are qualified. Right.
Don't make assumptions, because the assumptions can be dangerous.
Yeah.
And that's what I kind of worry a little bit about.
Yeah. It's I haven't seen that video and will not. But yeah, the Hank Gathers thing was immediately what I thought
it is
of.
Eerily similar to the Hank Gathers video.
Yeah. And that I've watched I don't know if you've watched the 30 for 30 on that with him and, Bo Kimball, and it's incredibly well done, but it's one of those things still that every time you watch it, you're like, it's almost like just as jarring as it was the first time.
Yeah. Just every time you see it. I mean, I did see the video this morning. I did not mean to see it, but I saw it, and then I watched it again because frankly, I watched it again and thought, how is he alive?
Right.
And it is the other part of the story that I hope will come out. I've heard from people that the medical care that he got on site en route to the hospital in Tallahassee and at the hospital in Tallahassee was amazing. If you go back to look at that day when Hank Gathers dropped, they didn't have a defibrillator and all of those things.
Right.
It was one of the reasons that he died, is that they were not equipped for that event. And clearly, and I don't know whether he had to be defibrillated or whatever the term is yesterday, but clearly the medical people, number one, the medical people were out to him within seconds. Yeah. Literally seconds, 3, 4, 5 seconds. They were there. He falls. You see the Florida kids start jumping around, screaming, and boom, they're there. And I think they took great care of him, and thank God, I mean, that happened. But I'm with you. I'm hopeful, because I already talked to some people close to a couple of basketball programs yesterday who said this has a chance to be really bad.
Yeah.
We don't need to make these assumptions that every person who has gotten COVID automatically has myocarditis. It's like, didn't we learn something from the Big Ten thing when some of the studies came back, And here's the thing, and this, I mean, you cover Kwanzo Martin, I cover Kermit Davis, I've covered Andy Kennedy, we've covered different people. These coaches don't want to put their kids' lives at danger.
Right.
They don't want the money that bad.
It's not that important to them.
Right.
I mean, and kind of along those lines, what this is making me think of. So, look, we've seen all these kids, opting out and doing whatever during the season, and some of them are doing it 6 games in, and the immediate reaction, and I'm not talking about just fans, from media, from everybody, is, well, that's weird. I don't get it. Why are you doing it, dude? We don't get to judge this, because every one of those kids, like in the back of his mind this morning, is thinking, dude, I could be Keyontae Johnson. Like, regardless, I'm not even making the COVID connection, just in general, right?
But so
we don't get to judge that.
No, I wouldn't judge it at all. That's the thing. But you've got kids at all of these programs who have had COVID.
Right.
I thought about it today. I've had COVID. And so am I safe to go run? And then
right.
I realize, see, you're doing it. You're falling into that trap. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean, there's been one Keyontae Johnson, and in those stories, no one says, hey, let's point out for the record that the NBA finished without any kind of a heart incident. Some of those guys had COVID, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, and the list goes on of guys that got COVID, recovered, and played out an NBA season without having a heart issue. We're covering a football season that's now in the middle of December, and to my knowledge, no one has had a heart issue. And
right.
some of the people who are playing football have had COVID and recovered from COVID. And now we're covering a basketball season, and there are basketball players who got COVID in June or July or August, and they have subsequently, quote, recovered, end quote, and they're playing basketball, and it does not appear that they have heart issues. So even if, God forbid, they tie this to that, and it turns out that this was something that should have been caught or whatnot, it doesn't necessarily mean that you should shut sports down.
Right. Well, it's like, and this to me isn't even a COVID thing. Now, this is obviously the issue we're dealing with right now, but you could apply this to lung cancer or flying in a plane or the chances of getting hit by a car as you walk across the road. Like, the great odds are that it's not going to happen to you, right? The odds are, let's say, I don't know, 1 in 1,000 that you're the one that this happens to. And those odds sound really good until you are the one person it happens to. Then you don't really give a damn what the odds are. It's like, well, it was me, and so all these things are I like, that's why I try really hard not to judge what anybody is, anybody's approach to all of this, because like, hey, I understand if you're looking at it and saying, yeah, they're really good odds, but like, if it's my kid, like the odds just changed, man. The odds don't matter, So it's a grown up conversation when we're not great at necessarily having those.
Well, we're not really trained to have them. It's the truth.
Right. And I don't mean just us. I just mean like in general, people.
I mean, it's one of the, sometimes I write about things in 10 thoughts that aren't, and listen, 99.99% of the people who read it are like, hey man, thank you for sharing some of your life with us and stuff like that. But every once in a while I get that guy that goes, I don't subscribe to this to read about your whatever.
Right.
Sometimes, sometimes I got to write it for me. I mean, I got to get it out somewhere. We'll get to some other topics in just a second. Let me tell you, this podcast also brought to you by our friends at Cathead Distillery. Cathead, the makers of the Blue Cat, which is the Cathead vodka, the Yellow Cat, which is the honeysuckle vodka, which is absolutely fantastic, and a Moscow Mule, by the way. They make the pecan vodka, which is a very versatile vodka. You can drink it by itself. You can use it as a substitute for a bourbon and an old-fashioned. This time of year, it's a nice change of pace. You can make it part of a martini. I've seen people do that. It's delicious. They've got the Hoodoo Chicory liqueur, which is fantastic. I like it as kind of an after dinner liqueur. They've got the Old Soul bourbon, which I opened a bottle of that just the other day. Used it in an old fashioned. It's absolutely perfect for that. They've got the 15-year, if you can find it, is just fantastic. All of that at catheaddistillery.com, catheadvodka.com. If your liquor store, restaurant, whatever, your bar doesn't have Cathead products, it's okay. Ask them to order them. They'll do it. Get them, enjoy them. Tell a friend, pass it on. It's kind of how it works. We'd appreciate it. People at Cathead have been great to us for a long time here on this show, so be good to them as well. Their products are absolutely fantastic. Oh yeah, the Bristow Gin. The Bristow Gin has a fantastic floral quality to it. You'll love it. It's great in a martini and a gin and tonic, just by itself for that matter. So all of that at catheadvodka.com, catheaddistillery.com. Also brought to you by Pinnacle Trust. Pinnacle Trust, based in Madison, Mississippi. They've got clients in more than 20 states, advisors in multiple states as well. Founded in 1997, Pinnacle provides detailed, specialized investment management, financial planning, retirement planning for individuals and businesses, and much more. At Pinnacle Trust, investing is treated like a commodity. Decisions are made using objective information and research, not emotions. So regardless of your level of wealth, Pinnacle Trust will sit down with you, listen to your goals, study your expenses, and put forth a comprehensive, detailed financial and retirement plan built just for you. It's pintrust.com, P-I-N-N trust.com. Tell them that you heard about Pinnacle Trust on the podcast. You get 10% off your first year's fees. Also brought to you by John Edwards of Regency Travel Incorporated in Memphis. If you're starting to think about that big summer trip, I know there was some great visuals this morning of big FedEx trucks and planes getting ready to carry the vaccine all over the country. That is great news. I think we can all agree to that if that gets done at the end of 2020, at least there's something good that comes out of the year. I don't care who you want to give credit to. You give credit to Trump, not to Trump, Biden, to Pfizer. I don't care. Just
Malzahn.
Give it to Gus. Yeah, give Gus the credit if you want. That's fine. But anyway, if you're thinking, hey, that's going to get out and we're going to be able to take that big trip this summer, hey, listen, now's the time to think about booking it, because the deals are fantastic. Because quite frankly, the travel industry has been hit pretty hard. It's cutthroat prices right now to fly, to trains, hotels, packages, all of that stuff. Won't find a lot of that stuff on your own, but John knows of it. He's part of Virtuoso. It's a worldwide network of travel partners that allows John to supply his clients with added values, unique benefits simply not available to other travelers. So get in touch with him, give him some parameters, give him a budget, give him some ideas of what you're looking to do, and then sit back, relax, and let him give you options that you're not going to find on your own. And no, you don't have to live in or near Memphis to take advantage of his services. 901-494-3387, or send him an email, jedwards@regencytravel.net. First-time clients can save $50 off their first booked trip just by telling John you heard about Regency Travel on the podcast. So a couple more things to get to, Gabe. I do, while we're talking about college basketball, the good side of college basketball, they're actually playing some games.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're kind of hard to watch. I think you're covering a really good team that's better than they thought they were going to be.
Yeah.
I'm covering a Kermit Davis team. They've only played 2 games. They played who they played, Jackson State and UNC Wilmington. So sweeping judgments from those 2 games would be a mistake by anyone who tried to do them. But one thing that's obvious, and it's been obvious for a while, is that Kermit, this is a team that reflects his personality. This is the team he wants to put out, kind of blue collar.
Mm-hmm.
Defensively, they get after you, blah, blah, blah. You look around the league, Kentucky's not what Kentucky normally is, at least not right now. You hate to even talk about this, but obviously Florida is not going to be what Florida was going to be.
Tennessee's played once, I think, maybe twice.
Yeah, it's the league looks like it's up for grabs. And I do still think there's going to be a tournament because the NCAA needs a tournament.
Yeah, there'll be a tournament. So this has been kind of the talk around Mizzou for a while now because Lucanzo brought back. I mean, it's a veteran team, right? They're all 3rd and 4th year guys. The starting lineup pretty much returned intact. They added a grad transfer from Hawaii. All their guys have been here for a while. Their youngest player is who is in the rotation regularly as a sophomore. And so there was a lot of talk, and we asked Conzo before the season, like, with how weird the offseason was, how much of an advantage is it that, like, your guys all know each other, right? They've all played together. They've all done this. And I think you're seeing that play out. Missouri is really good right now. Kentucky is really not very good right now because what do? They bring in these 1-year rentals every year, and those guys never practice together. And I think that's a big deal. But you mentioned how hard it is to watch games. I mean, Missouri, Illinois last night, like, those are 2 legitimate, I think, top 15 to 20 teams in the country this year. 52 fouls. Jeremiah Tillman was fouled out of the game in like 18 minutes. The last one on a hook on the offensive end that I've watched the replay 7 times and I've never seen. The ultimate deciding play of the game was Kofi Coburn. Like, he looks like an SEC defensive tackle. The kid is absolutely huge for Illinois. He got tangled up with a guy on Missouri, and his hand hit Mitchell Smith in the face. Now, it was certainly not intentionally. It didn't even look that bad to me. The announcers didn't think it should have been a flagrant. Neither did I. Nothing was called on the floor. They let them play on. Coburn dunked. They counted the basket and then later went back and called a flagrant foul. They gave Missouri 2 free throws with like 11 seconds left in the game. Officials can't get out of their own way. They wreck games. They make them really hard to watch.
What's hard for me is the no fans in the stands. I couldn't say it last night because my son is such an NBA fan, and I need to be very supportive of that right now because this is something that gets him excited, and it's been all the change has been hard on a 14-year-old. But like, he was watching Thunder and Spurs in San Antonio in a preseason game, and it's empty in the building. And I think in San Antonio, once the season starts, they'll allow a certain number of fans.
Right.
But it was weird, and so, number one is exhibition basketball, which is kind of boring, and then.
But even the regular season is going to feel like exhibition a little bit with nobody there.
Nobody in the stands. It's so weird, and it's just jarring. Still, I catch myself wanting to watch games that are being played in stadiums that have fans as opposed to games that are played in empty stadiums. I just catch myself flipping. Like, the Titans had some fans in the stands, the Jags have fans in the stands, but whatever. But anyway, I'm hoping that as we get later into the spring, that maybe, obviously, some of the numbers go down, and maybe as the vaccine gets dispensed, that they'll loosen up and go back in. Because I'll never. I don't think never is a big word. I think it'll take me a long time to take fans for granted again.
Well, so yesterday, Missouri had a football game against a top 10 team, obviously. And there was, they got run out of the stadium, but there was a moment where where Missouri blocked a kick, it recovered on the 1-yard line and, tied the game 14-14. And I'm thinking, watching that game, how nuts would that stadium, like, I've been in that stadium when things like that happen. How nuts would that be, right? Mizzou Arena, Drew Smith hits a 3 to put Missouri up 13 points on number 6 Illinois with 7 minutes left.
Oh, it would have been
like, nobody cares, right? I mean, I've heard Fran Fraschilla calling a game and saying this is the loudest building I've ever been in, and that's what it would be like last night. And it's just different. I mean, it doesn't mean less. The games aren't any less important, but they feel less important because you don't have that. And I know you don't watch a ton of golf, but like I watch a lot of golf, and it took me a lot of tournaments to get used to seeing Dustin Johnson stick one 2 feet from 180 yards and just like nobody cared, right? There was no screaming. There was no, Baba Booey guy off the tee shot. There was none of that. It was just like Dustin Johnson tipping his cap to no one, and it's really bizarre. The only thing I like about no fans at the arena is you can hear everything. And like all these sports, you're hearing all these athletes and all these coaches swearing and saying all these things that you would never know. You're hearing the NBA players' names as audibles in the football games, from the quarterback. I kind of like that part, but
James Harden.
Yeah. That's
all right.
Cool.
Kind of last thing. Do you have any kind of strong opinion on this whole Ohio State thing? I mean, the Big Ten clearly changed the rules to let Ohio State in the championship.
Which I think the Big Ten should have done. That's smart on the Big Ten's part.
I mean, their goal is to get a team in. I mean, right. It stinks for Indiana, but regardless.
But like Ohio State already beat Indiana, right? It's not Ohio State's fault they didn't play 6 games.
Exactly. Yet they're a big part of you that is like, go Northwestern this weekend. That would just be the ultimate slap in the face of the Big Ten. Because I am irritated at the Big Ten still, because the Big Ten liked to play this. Hey, we're the smart guys. We're not going to do that this season. And then when the SEC and the Big 12 and the ACC got going and it wasn't chaotic,
right,
or as chaotic as they thought it was going to be, they're like, oh, no, we're going to reverse course and play.
So I don't want Ohio State in the playoff, but you know what I also don't want? Texas A&M getting in the playoff because Ohio State doesn't. I mean, because if winning your division means nothing, or winning your conference means nothing, then why do we have divisions and conferences, right? It's like I always go back to before baseball added the wild card. The last year was like 93 or something, and the Braves and the Giants were in the same division, and one of those teams won like 108 games and one won 107, and the one that won 107 didn't make the playoffs. And so winning that league you're in should count for something, and if it doesn't, I mean, A&M lost the only game of the season that mattered by 28 points. Yep. And so we want to put them back in to face that same team again to win a title. No, I only want Ohio State out of the playoff if it means, Cincinnati or Coastal Carolina or somebody like that gets in. And that's clearly not going to happen because 2-loss Ohio State or Iowa State is ranked ahead of those teams. And the committee clearly said last week, no, man, if you're not in one of these 5 leagues, like we ain't ever going to give you a key to the club.
That's why I wish, and there's not enough time to do it, but I wish there was a way to go, you know what? We're going to take these 3 teams and we're going to, hey, Coastal, you and Cincinnati, you guys meet in wherever, and the winner gets a spot in the playoff.
Right.
I mean, just in this crazy year, just go, you know what? We're going to make a game. We're just going to create games. I'd hope.
I mean, we've done that before. Coastal Carolina did it a week ago. They put the whole thing on the line to host BYU.
Because there was a story, Dellinger wrote it. It was a good story. The truck drivers got in the truck with all the stuff, and they just said, head towards the Carolinas. They don't even know where exactly where they're headed. Like, just get moving in that direction. And
don't worry, we're scheduling the return game for 2037 right now. So
yeah, exactly. So it could be done. I don't know. And look, I'm on Saturday, if the games are played and there's a game played in Atlanta and the SEC crowns a champion, I'm going to give Greg Sankey and the people at the SEC office a ton of credit because they did what a lot of people said couldn't be done. It was ugly. It was chaotic, but they got it done. They got to a starting line. They were this close to a finish line. And if they do it, kudos to them.
I mean, so far they've lost what, 1 game?
1 game. As of today, the 2 teams, Ole Miss and Texas A&M, will miss a game.
That's a pretty good season.
Assuming that Vanderbilt goes to Georgia and Ole Miss goes to LSU and Missouri goes to Starkville and all that. It's just, they did it. I mean, if you told them before the year you're going to end up 1 game short, they probably would have said, okay, well, I mean, love to have an opportunity to get that 1 game in, but okay.
Dan Mullen wished they end up 2 games short. But
yeah, no doubt. Dan Mullen's wishing they could Could have bailed on those because that was killer for them.
That's all right. He's a reasonable guy. I'm sure he's handling it well.
Yeah, Mullen, man, it's always somebody else's fault. He never can go. On a night when my team should have been ready, it wasn't.
Yeah,
everybody would have so much respect if he would do that. What I loved was Mike Leach last night.
Damn shoe shouldn't have been there, man.
Mike Leach told a reporter, he goes, "Well, is your writing on an upward track? I mean, maybe send some of your writing." It's like, come on, man. I mean, and this
no, but I also don't make $4 million a year. I'm paid enough to just be stagnant.
This particular writer is one that normally I would enjoy seeing him getting picked on, but in this case, it's like, oh, come on, you're making a ton of money. He's not. It's a fair question, and I don't know why the answer can't be. You know what? Not really. We're not on an upward track right now, but we're going to get there. We're going to make changes we have to get there because that's my job. But no, today, are we? Of course not.
It goes back. Charlie Weiss, when he was the head coach at Kansas, they still play the clip on Kansas City radio. Like somebody asked him, I forget even what happened, but his whole tenure was a train wreck, and his answer was, "Did you see that pile of crap we put out there yesterday?" I wish coaches would just say things like that.
That's what I used to love about covering Andy Kennedy, when he would just say, "We sucked."
Yeah. Well, that's like, I felt bad for Drinkwitz yesterday. He spent 15 minutes answering questions, and he basically just kept saying over and over, like, "Look, guys, we got our butts beat. Like, they're better, and we've got a long way to go if that's what we want to be." I mean, it doesn't take a lot of analysis. When you get outgained 600 to 200, like, let's not try to make this about a drive in the second quarter. He just got beat.
What was that play call on second? He's like, come on, man. I mean, I got brought in to catch them. We're not there yet. I mean, if it was that easy, Barry Odom would still be over here. Barry Odom would be in the seat right now.
I don't know if you noticed, they just signed 37 more 4-stars during that game.
They just had 6 5-stars commit in the second quarter.
Right. Half my defense opted out. I got 59 dudes, and I don't even know who 30 of them are.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, man, thanks for the time today. You guys want to keep up with Jay's deal? It's over at auburnsports.com. I know Gabe had a big flash sale. So what did you sell, like 170 something?
240.
240 new subs.
Yeah.
PowerMizzou.com. He'll have coverage this weekend of Missouri and Mississippi State. And you can come to rebelgrove.com and catch Ole Miss LSU coverage. National Signing Day is Wednesday. Basketball going on. It's kind of a hot time to be on the Rivals Network. So thanks to everybody for listening. Thanks again to you, Gabe. So for Gabe DeArmond, I'm Neil McCready. We'll be back. I think we'll be back next week. We hadn't talked about it because it's kind of Christmassy time, but we'll be back sometime before the end of the year with another edition of Greatest Pod in the South, brought to you by ACS. Until then, take care.